Hello and welcome to a very special podcast, once again in partnership with the National Talent Academy for Film and TV Drama and GAZE International LGBTQIA Film Festival. We are delighted to be joined by the final three participants from starGAZE, a platform for LGBTQIA talent that gives participants access to Irish and international creatives, full festival access and a mentorship with an established LGBTQIA filmmaker. Applications for next year's programmes will be accepted until the 14th of April at 5 p.m, so make sure to check out nationaltalentacademies.ie. Today we are joined by writer-director Liadán Roche, writer-director Ian Fallon and visual artist and activist Pradeep Mahadeshwar. Thank you guys for chatting with us.
Thank you.
Hello.
Thank you.
We had a great chat last week with the other participants, and I'm really looking forward to getting your take on it. I was wondering, it worked well the last time to just go around and ask you to introduce yourself and your work and a little bit about your background as well, just to kind of place everyone. And Leah?
Okay, yeah, I can go first. So I'm a trans filmmaker from Cork, currently in Dublin. Yeah, where am I at right now? It's a weird time because basically I've graduated from film school, so the NFTS in London. And there was so much pressure to just like pole vault into the industry from that, basically. Like we had our sort of last play showcase thing, like we do like a theater thing for showcase on Thursday. So I'm a bit all over the place, to be honest.
Your last short did very well.
Yeah, which is amazing. It's had a sort of second wind again. So basically it did like more it did like Flare and Gaze and Iris, so like the bigger queer ones in the UK and Ireland. And now it's sort of screening in like small like cinemas, like Facets in Chicago and Straight Cat in Kansas. Sorry, they give me a t-shirt as well. I'm wearing it right
That's a
now.
great plug. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
reading it audio only, but that is a really cool bit of swag.
Yeah, well, it's great because it feels like it can do the more like front-facing like industry film festivals, but also there are like trans people abroad who want to see it and put it on. So that's sort of where the second wind has come in. Yeah, and kind of just trying to figure out how to get a new short film off the ground now. So yeah, I might talk about that later, but that's where I'm at.
And that's fabulous. And what are the themes that you're drawn to now that, the process of making that film, of sharing it with audiences, of, like getting like really, I mean, it has really resonated with people. Those are great festivals to get into.
Mm,
There's nice nods there. Like sure, like if you have your checkbook ready, any funders, I'd say be ready to go.
yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm very interested in um so I know it sounds a bit buzzwordy, but I'll explain it a bit more. Basically, I'm very interested in like trans characters that are a bit more like morally compromised or like morally gray. I'm just very interested in trans characters acting out, being weird, being mean, all of these different things. And that wasn't like a sort of backlash mentality where I was like, oh, I'm not seeing like the sort of representation I want currently, sort of thing. It was just that was a gut feeling of like, I want to basically explore this type of character. Um, I'm very interested in intimacy in general. So the last short that we were talking about, Teratoma, has like intimate scenes and sex and all these things, but mainly because I just find that that's a very like messy sort of space for characterization and different like stuff like that. And I think so. Firstly, those misguided characters are really important to me, but so are like bleak sort of situations and worlds. Basically, I am interested in sort of like projecting into like near future stuff. I'm interested in like projecting out into like, oh, what's the end point of this sort of ideology or mentality and all that sort of thing. And basically, I try and find like some sort of hope in that. So, for example, if I have a really morally gray character, I try and find some sort of hint of like forgiveness or some hope of change or something. But a lot of the time, my work is really feel bad. That short definitely is. Anything I've written past that is pretty feel bad. But basically, I work in the feel bad space to try and like sort things out in my own head or to like be like, oh, here's a positive I can take away from that, basically. Yeah, so those are the things I think.
And just as a creator, as someone who's, making these stories
Mm,
that and nothing is like sort of based on you, but it's that you've put your worldview in and your thoughts.
yeah.
Would you describe your voice then as being sort of like rightfully so, but angry and powerful and clever? What would be your if you were to like brand yourself?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's getting angrier for sure.
That's where we are. That's where we are.
Yeah, but I'm sure
2025.
a lot of us are getting angrier. Um, I think also my work is getting more political. And it's something that I like have a lot of opinions on in my own head, but that haven't cropped up in my work um because my work is often kind of messy and there's like a bit more like because I'm dealing with characters that don't fully represent me, a lot of the times like the message that comes from it isn't um like a stance that I'll be like, I believe X, Y, and Z, you know. I find that quite hard to deal with. But I I'm basically I'm writing a play right now that I think is probably like my most like political thing right now. And it's basically about a like a TERF and a trans woman in like a new relationship basically, and they're both like feeling out each other's sort of desires and fantasies and stuff. And the woman who is has like subscribed to more like turfy ideology things doesn't believe that of herself. So she sees herself as an ally. But like as we go through the play and they start to discover each other's kinks and fantasies and also discover more about each other's lives, that sort of power dynamic comes into play and we start to see the trans woman getting squashed into a very particular box and the other woman gaining more and more power throughout the play. So yeah, I was very interested in that. Just obviously, it's like a hot button issue everywhere. But like I had a particular encounter with a woman who was like this, and I was trying to figure that out in my own head and be like, where do I relate to this, basically, or how do I relate to this? So yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
I have only about 18 million questions, but I think we'll go into like, inspiration and thoughts and things further down
Yeah,
the line. But that's so interesting.
absolutely.
Yeah,
No
that's
problem.
so Ian.
Yeah, I'm a queer writer director from Kildare. I'm also in a kind of weird phase. I don't know, currently on a grad visa in New York City, which you may hear. I don't know how good the microphone will cut off, but New York City is a loud city. Um, I don't know what it is in the air, but the sirens are they're just gonna ping. In terms of like stories I'm telling, I'm plainly really interested in queer characters. I'm really interested in consuming queer content and then giving that back. And same as Leah, kind of morally gray ones. I really want to have fun. I don't want to like tell these nice, soft, simple stories, which are like, very important in their own right. But I just love to have a bit more fun with it and kind of explore the darker side, but not in like a didactic or like a, necessarily depressing way. I think there's always light to be found. And like queer people are so, in my experience anyway, so irreverent with humor. Like it's all like you find the humor in the trauma and you find the humor in the darkness. And so I think that's a really fun like area to explore that I like in my writing and my directing.
Brilliant. So you've gone from a short documentary that has done very, very well on that, won awards, premiered at Cork, that's some achievement, and now Amoeba is that. So you've kind of jumped from like doc to genre, but the doc, if I saw the right one, it's quite interesting in how it's presented as well. It has like maybe that's your background in sound, but that experimental tone to it.
Hmm. I kind of cheated it because I like that was those were that documentary was kind of specifically uh a college task, I don't know. And I was like, I just like I'm terrified of talking to people. I'm terrified of like finding a story. Terrifying. But if I can make as narrative a film out of this documentary, I'll be grand, I'll be fine. So I live really near the Blessington Lakes and the Pulafuca Reservoir, and my dad would have grown up right beside it because his dad worked in ESB on the Pulafuca Reservoir. And so he like kind of always talks about like, it's this beautiful lake, but it's entirely man-made, and the kind of history is a little bit controversial. And a lot of people have unfortunately like lost their lives to the lake because it's quite dangerous. There's two rivers running underneath that like give it really weird tides and really dangerous, make it really dangerous to swim in. And there's all this rubble and like trees underneath that like when the like say in the summer if there's really hot heat wave and the water drops, some of those things will come up out of the water. Um and so I was like, perfect horror film in the making. And then like I found this book that was all about like perspective, like kind of stories from people that had grown up in the valley because it was only flooded in the 1940s, and it was kind of like it was wild, like the stuff they did, and like they flooded people out of their houses because it was like, I think there was this saying, it was like it's either the bailiff is the water or something along those lines. Like there wasn't a choice. You were going to have to leave. And like they did weird things like dug up cemeteries to move the bodies out of the lake and like blew up bridges and just like I think the government was slightly using World War II as a distraction mode and was like, we need like Dublin needs water and electricity. Let's just, do this and like um do this whole thing. So the thing was such an interesting history to it, but that interesting history has been discussed so many times. And once like the history has been discussed on RTE, it's like, well, there's nothing more to be said. It's like, but I just thought like all those pieces had been very like expository. They'd been very discussing the facts, discussing the history, and I really like the idea of the tone and the feeling of that history rather than like, the pure facts. And so I approached the documentary with this book and these stories to explore that kind of because like it's a horror themed story. It's people losing their lands, people losing their lives as well, because suddenly this community that hadn't grown up near the beach or like near swimming pools had this massive body of water, and if you don't, it's felt like massive dangerous body of water that like sure looks peaceful on top but like is so dangerous underneath. I think a lot of people lost their lives to it that way because it doesn't look like it's as dangerous as it is. And so yes, that was like kind of prep for Amoeba, and that it is very experimental, and I really wanted to go for tone and go for there's another word that I can't think of. It's go just for that feeling and like explore the horror through the editing and through the sound design. And so building up to Amoeba, which is also a little bit experimental with sound design and especially with editing, they would just kind of prep for each other in that way. Um, but yeah.
And what's interesting as well is like so your background would be in sound and the layers of sound, like the trailer looks incredible that it's so atmospheric and in terms of, bringing
Sweet.
that kind of auditory
I was just saying
storytelling.
atmosphere was the word that was I was looking for.
Like what like I know this. So do you, when you're kind of contriving something, do you like, can you picture that soundscape as you're going through it? Can you kind of like feel the layers? Because like, like people say film, it's a visual medium in some ways, but good sound, it's sort of the thing where if you don't know it, it's invisible, but you can build worlds and hint at worlds in a way that like cost wise you could never create.
Yeah. I like some of like all my favorite films kind of tend I've like I'll look back at them and be like, oh yeah, the soundscape is really interesting in that. Like it's kind of cliche, but like Black Swan, I think is one of my favorites. So much fun, I think, as a film. And it's like obviously horrible and psychologically dark and like crazy, wild. Um, but the sound of that film is so much fun. The creativity they apply, and because, as you say, sound is invisible, you can get away with crazy shit. They have her like going down the stairs, passing people, and like you hear like fluttering wings as they walk by, and it's just that like I think sound is so good for exploring psychology in characters and communicating where a character is at in the story. I recently watched Thoroughbreds, which I'd heard like good things, but I really loved it and like so much for the sound and like the performances are so good in their own right, but they're so assisted by the sound. Like you can't like deadpan is so much fun for like actors to play and like the kind of psychopath, but then like when there's someone behind that being like here's a riser when they're just saying something very normal in their deadpan voice, it just creates so much more of an effective effect, I guess, for that, just working in psychology and like weird psychology as well.
Brilliant. And in terms of what was it about New York that was the draw to you in terms of the projects that you want to do, in terms of what you're, the area that you're sort of looking to spread your wings into?
Yeah, I feel like I have to say definitely it was because my friends wanted to go and I want to be with my friends at this age, I want to enjoy life. Um, and we already had a friend over here that has a green card, so it was kind of like the four of us were going over together and like it was just gonna be that experience for itself. But also the queer scene in New York is wild and crazy and I wanna feature all the freaks and geeks in my projects. So I feel like you could throw a stone in New York and hit a million. There's just so many of them and like the so much more louder, so much more passionate almost, 'cause, about themselves and about like how they want to dress. It's not even all the queer spaces that have like the freaks and geeks dressing. Like they are just you walk down the street and there's someone, in straps and they're doing crazy stuff. Or there's someone on the subway who's performing and you just have to like it's really in the deep end. And I really wanted that to like, I don't know if I've kind of been discussing with a lot of people like what the plan is for after. Like, do you want to get another little visa? Do you want to stay on, or do you want to like go home, or do you want to like get married? Um, but I think I just wanted to come over and gain as much life experience and writing experience, and it's been so interesting so far. Like I feel like I'm doing nothing, but then I'm also really enjoying the time I'm here with the people that I'm here with and meeting new people, both through like, you can go to a bar and they'll just talk to you. They'll just and they love Irish people and they're like, "Oh my God, you're Irish." And I'm like, "Yeah." Like it just feels like a flex. But and they just gave us the month. Well, they gave the Irish Americans the month of March, but hey, we'll take the credit anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Sounds like very inspiring and very, yeah, just that you get to really challenge yourself and view the world in a different way as well. Like, I think it's very easy if you've kind of been in one place for quite a long time and yeah, to forget that there's so many perspectives and again, like the history alone in New York and what has come through and how that has culturally changed the whole world and been, in terms of rights, in terms of advocacy, in terms of, yeah, like all those amazing historical moments, and even, those bits of culture that permeate the way that we see the world. It's all like stems, everything stems from New York. It's amazing. Now, Pradeep, this from the auditory to the visual, and maintaining that level of activism. Tell me about yourself and your background.
So I'm from India originally, and I'm in Ireland for 13 years, 14 years. Um, and I'm visual artist, accidentally become a filmmaker. But there is a backstory of that. I was working in world's biggest film industry, Bollywood, and I had all said to design and establish career of publicist. Um, so after working 129 films, publicity, and some Hollywood films, including something happened in my life that I chose to leave India and start from scratch. So I went to UK. Then again, something happened to UK, and it was very creatively inspiring, and that brought me to Ireland. And uh, but it was a focus more on visual art, not filmmaking. Uh, there was organic process back in India for me. If I would have stayed back, I would have become. It will be my organic process of big after publicist, publicist and creative director. The next step would be filmmaker. But that all thing gone, and I came to Ireland and become activist voluntarily. Um, but the filmmaking come as anger, and that I was fan of gaze, and since I came to Ireland, it was my one of the best experiences of going to the gaze and watching films. But it was just consciously absorbing those films, but at the same time seeing that there is no representation of, or fair representation of queer people of color beyond certain boxes of representation in the films, queer films, and especially from Europe, and then deep down from Ireland. Uh, and that became the trigger point to make some experimental film, uh, concept of self, where I documented my 365 days of lockdown life, um, and the harsh reality of Dublin gay scene that is predominantly racist, in the face racism, and where skin color matters. And then it become more of my art. Uh, uh, yeah, and that's how I become filmmaker, and I want to continue this because I'm enjoying it.
So I definitely want to talk more about, again, the type of stories that you like are compelled to tell, how you tell them, but also the fact that you provide a space. Is that your background in publicity, that you've the Queer Spectrum Film Festival as well, to have a space to, yeah, showcase everything, and to get those, like, the different voices there and celebrate them.
Yeah, it is very interesting when we talk a lot of fancy words about DEI and intersectionality. But when you come to the art, any kind of art, like writing, performance, or filmmaking or stage, there is a distinct experience of queer people of color, or you can say immigrants, queers. There is no intersection between Caucasian or white queers. It is a different life, but we have kind of uh, easy way out to, oh, wow, we are equal and we are practicing inclusion and diversity. But there are these stories lying, and it is not only about coming out stories, but somebody who come to Europe or especially to Ireland, how their life cultivate, uh, what are their passions, how they live life, how they do sex, how they make friendships, how they access intimacy, uh, and how they've been seen, because it is such a part of my identity now, because constantly being seen as a person of color, it is not healthy, but also it is such inspiring to show those stories on the screen in the moving images in spoken word or speak recorded spoken word. So it is exciting. I'm more into showcasing the stories of people getting older in adopted countries. So we are immigrants getting older in adopted countries, or people transitioning through their uh, uh, gender identity in adoptive countries. So, for example, queer spectra, queer Asian pride, that group uh, established. I have seen this pattern since 2020. There is a significant number of queer people from global south coming to Ireland just to come out as a trans or just to come out as a non-binary. And as a storyteller, as a visual maker, I feel very challenged. Like, why we are not telling this story? Why we are not showcasing this part of this queer Irishness? And this is also my bigger project that I'm developing, and it's called New Irish Queerness, which is not necessarily Caucasian, not necessarily white. Uh, they have different accent, different skin tones, different eating habits, different perception of mental health, uh, and sex and friendship and just being queer.
Brilliant. Oh God, it's not like I don't even know how you fit it all in. It sounds like this plethora of projects that it's like basically it's to change thoughts and minds.
Oh yeah, I'm just holding back myself because I have to talk all this
I know
passionately,
we could just
and I
talk
can
to
talk
you.
all
So
night.
good. I know. Tell me about what your experience has been on starGAZE and what it has been like working with your mentor and what have you sort of taken out of it?
Yeah, so so I got this amazing mentor called Amor Al-Khadi, and I was specifically looking for a mentor who is a maker and not limited to making, but uh, who has presence in performance because my art is more performance based, and also immigrant and that fraction of society which is not usually get representation. And I got this mentor. Um, we both are very busy, so it is really hard to get coordinate and meet each other. So we had so far one session, and I'm hoping to have more with him. And I'm developing one piece of performance based experimental film in Paris with Bangladeshi Hijra community in Paris, and I will work with them. So that is something ambitious project, and that is what I'm expecting to work with Al-Qadi to get some feedback and insights.
God, and such an international, again, like kind of that reach. That sounds so fascinating. Leah, what about yourself? Tell me about your experience on the program, what it was like getting on, what you've been sort of working on since you've been on it.
Yeah, honestly, it was probably the best thing that I've been accepted into. Just because, well, like, firstly, sorry, this might sound like I'm shilling for them right now, but like, I believe all of these things. Firstly, we got like filmmaker passes to Gaze, which like, festival passes are just like, very expensive, and like most of the times when a festival comes around, I'll get to see like two films. So like being able to be like, oh, I'm like gonna go to everything felt so like rewarding and fun, and it was just such like a creative like space. Um, the weekend itself, where like even sharing like our films with like other filmmakers like Ian and Pradeep and Hiram and everybody, like it felt that in itself felt very like exciting and creative. But then getting to spend the whole weekend with all of these amazing like filmmakers and artists was just like the best. It was so like amazing, and like kickstarted so many different projects. So that was great. And just like the amount of different like filmmakers that we got to see and talk to, like Andrew Haig. Is it Haig or Haig? I don't know. But All of Us Strangers, director, came in to speak to us. So did Kate Dolan. So just like just people that I've wanted to talk to for the longest time and ask questions of. Uh, we just like basically had their ear for an hour, which is great. Um, but for me, I've gotten so much out of like the mentorship. It took a bit to set up because I was sort of aiming high with the person that I wanted to get in touch with, and I wasn't asking somebody in Ireland, which would have probably been easier just with the connections that starGAZE has. But they really like pushed for me to like they basically wanted me to like be ambitious with who I wanted to talk to. They were like, if you don't like have a connection with somebody or you don't have a connection to their work, then there'd be no point asking. So like just choose people that you're really that you know you will have that connection with. So I went with Louise Ward, who is a Canadian trans filmmaker. And I thought that this was a crazy pick because she's just finished this 4 hour long epic movie called Castration Movie Part One. The 4 hours is the part one, and she's currently shooting part two, which will be just as long. So like her whole life right now is basically going to screenings and events and funding the next one. So I was like, she's far too busy for me. But I really wanted to get in touch with a trans filmmaker who has sort of like established herself. And also she's like working in the feature film space, which is something that um like one of starGAZE's aims is to like try and help like short filmmakers or other creators like break into the feature film space, both in Ireland and abroad, because that jump is always weird and difficult, and it's hard to know how to go about that just because of the sort of difference in funding between a short and a feature. And there's not a lot of like mid-budget level options in the Irish like funding streams. It's usually just like very small like passion project stuff, and then like, oh my God, we're in the hundreds of thousands now. Like, how am I supposed to prove that I can do anything with that? Um, so it's been really rewarding speaking with Louise because she is like a self-funder, and she's kind of had to be a self-funder. She produces a lot of her own work, and she's sort of like she operates like outside of like the standard film industry as well. It's very sort of queer underground sort of work. So that resonates with sort of where I want to sit. Um, so I came to her with sort of two projects that I was very interested in getting help on, both in very different stages. So one of them is a short that I am directing that is currently just around pre-production area. And we've been looking for funding for it for around a year now, and that's proven to be tricky. Basically because it's very trans, it's very genre, which it doesn't uh like is difficult to sell to Irish funding bodies, basically. Or at least that's what it feels like because this is basically a short film about trans sex. Um, I'll like give you a short synopsis, but basically it's two trans people hooking up at one of their family homes. One of them's just been recently evicted, and the other one has been stuck at his parents' house. And he has access to a chalk that lets them into extra dimensional room, basically. So like you can push into like another dimensional space, and it's literally just a bed in there. And it's sort of dealing with like how we navigate like queer intimacy in the midst of like the housing crisis, basically, and how do we find space for ourselves. Um, so it's like very fun, horny, and interesting. We're just trying to find the money for it right now. So Louise has been really helpful with basically, on one hand, how do you pitch it to more conservative funding bodies and how do you like get your money and like make what you want to make? And the other thing is um how do you like self-fund and crowdfund and stuff? So that's been really helpful. And she's also been helping me with a short film project that I'm currently working on, which is more horror, more experimental than anything I've worked on in the past. And it's basically about a newly out trans woman who has decided to complete her transition within her room. It's a thing called like cocooning, and some people do it so that they don't have to face the embarrassment of transitioning in the public eye. But what happens with that is like transitioning doesn't have an end point, basically. It's something that you're always doing. So I was really interested in where somebody would draw the line as to say, I'm coming out of this room because I feel comfortable in my body now. Um, and basically, I was thinking that when you're desperately trying to like pass a cis, you internalize some like negative ideas about sort of like how do I explain this? Basically, if you like are stuck in a room, like scrutinizing yourself and your own body and like how you want it to look and stuff like that, I feel like that can create like a really negative space. So basically, the short begins to like take a turn for the worse, and she basically begins to like molt her skin and like she gets the version of like cis femininity that she wants, but like all I'll say is at what cost, because she does some very bad things to the people that she loves in the process. Louise writes quite like dark and controversial, problematic characters and stuff. So I was really interested in getting her feedback on it Also, Castration Movie has a character that's obsessed with 4chan. And I was interested in talking with her about that because this character slips into that space. And I wanted to make sure it felt realistic. And um, because some trans people can get caught in that sort of like more online sort of space like that. And I was just interested in exploring a character going through that, basically. Yeah.
God. There's so much, like it's so rich and it just sounds like such powerful metaphors and very entertaining and very sharp and like that. But I mean, I can totally see the intergenerational or interdimensional one being quite
Yeah,
costly in
yeah.
terms of VFX as well, where you're like, oh God, but you might
Yeah,
do
yeah,
justice that you do need your
yeah.
like decent enough budget to create that and to have that. I'm sure you'd come up with very creative workarounds and stuff. But yeah, that to do that like space justice and to give it there. But I would watch it. I think it's fascinating and I think genre as well. It's such a great way to explore things just in a way
Mm.
that like secretly entertains, but then your people are accidentally learning a lesson, which is
Yeah,
brilliant.
exactly. Yeah, I love horror. Like every feature film script I've written so far has been in the horror space. I just haven't had the chance to do it in a short film yet. So that will be fun.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to watching them. Hope if anyone is listening, I'd say open those checkbooks because that's something I need to see. And then I have not seen in any short film program I have been in a long time anything tackle that interesting. So I might actually, God, we're coming really close for time. Ian, what about yourself? Tell me about how you felt the program was. What was your experience on it? Yeah, and what was it like working with Stacey?
It was been great. Ugh. It has been great. I don't know. I had like a very fun experience because um I I think I was the only one without Dublin accommodation. And so they were like, look, we can put like we've a bit of spare, we can put you up in a hotel. And I was like, "What?" So I got to stay in a hotel up in Dublin for like and like I'd like, been Kildare, so it would have been like less fun because I would have had to commute back and forth and like, the 126 is a good L bus, but she is not reliable at the best of times or like especially for like late nights. So that was a really fun experience. It was like entering, a little world where like had my hotel room and then I went to the cinema and I saw the films and I went to the workshop and I was like, this is crazy. This
The
is
life of a VIP, that's it.
I know. I was like, what the hell? But yeah, like it was such a fun experience. It's so fun like meeting everyone and seeing everyone's films and like that being like an introduction to people, I think is always so good and so interesting to like meet someone, you say hi, and then in 5 minutes you're watching like something they put so much of themselves into and reveal so much about them and what they're into and what like how they see the world. I think that was such a valuable experience. And then also, yeah, just meeting the people there, like talking to all of the guests, and like all like they covered so many different roles because like I've worked with Emma Gunnering in casting for as a casting assistant, and we got to talk to Sarah Jones, which was really interesting, and she kind of like was interviewing actors and writers. Um, so it was like it was a whirlwind. It like was so much quicker than I kind of hoped it was, just because it's just like you're so busy all the time that it flies. Um, but it was like it was perfect. It was amazing. I could not have hoped for like a better time. And then like even, you know, you're in it and you're like, God, this is gonna be so sad when it ends. And then it never kind of ended. It keeps on. I'm still in contact with all of the stargazers. Me and Sam have been like emailing the entire time in New York because they were in New York before me and they were giving me so much info about it. Um, and then working with Stacey has just been like a dream. We've only had like two proper sessions before, but like they allowed me like one like introductory session that like wasn't on the books, which was so nice of them. Um, but they've been so good. I've kind of come to them being like, look, I don't know really how. I should, if you have any advice for like if you were in my position, like how would you want a mentor to come to you and be like, here's what. So I kind of was like very open about everything. Um, but so far it's kind of been like discussing shorts that I have in the works, kind of like one that was really relevant, and I wrote a letter to Stacey to kind of tell them like please, please, please. Um, but I kind of talked about this short that I've been working on that is quite relevant to their film Here Before, which I like was kind of why I even opted to like suggest Stacey. Um, because I loved that film, and like I really love when a director is using the craft to explore the character psychology. You know, the editing in that film, this like the sound design, as we were saying, is so interesting and fun and explorative of the main character that I was I'm making a short. It also has to do with like grief and like grief manifesting in very weird and human ways, and like that kind of I think brought her on board, I think, a little bit. And we've been talking about that. We've been talking about another short that I'm working on, which is really fun. It's all about like this world of like kind of post homophobia that we live in, where it's like most people know you're not meant to be homophobic, but you know, people still kind of want to be, and they're gonna find like justifications to be, and they're gonna be like, you know, gay people are pretty bad, and for a reason. But it's a fun short about these three young girls who um devised this plan to gay bash one of their exes because their exes cheated on them with a man. And you know, it's this idea of like, well, may the punishment fit the crime, which I find really fun. Like I find that like idea of like, you know, telling queer stories, but like not specifically, sometimes the main character doesn't have to be a queer character. It could be just like the vibe, the topic at hand is queer. Um, and so we've kind of been going through these shorts. I also, would love to write a feature someday, maybe. Um, and I've kind of been gleaning advice from them about that. But they've just been so grounded and so like giving with their time and their like knowledge, and like they're so generous about everything that it's just I was sweating it going into it, because you're like, Jesus, I don't like, what am I, who am I to them? What am I to ask? But like straight off the bat, we're just so kind, and like, well, I want to know about you. Send me all of your things. And like I sent them my shorts. I sent them like, it's an ask to send your shorts to them and be like, please watch it. But they watched everything I sent them. They read everything I sent them, and like that was just such a marker of like, God, this is like an incredible person. So thankful for this experience, and then like so thankful for starGAZE overall, and Sam, Eve, Evan, and even James. Uh, love them all and for what they've done. It's been so much fun.
Fabulous. And I'll let everyone jump in on this one. Anyone thinking of applying or maybe a little bit nervous about taking the next step in their career, what advice would you give to them?
So okay, I will thank Greg because he was the first entry for me to the gaze world, and then Ivan and Sam for creating the space, and also National Talent Academy. So I would like to give some perspective to film maker from my background, uh, who are not from Irish academia or from uh, Irish culture, or graduate from Irish filmmaking industry. That just do what you feel right, because there is no linear way or right or wrong. There is a lot of uh, uh, there are a lot of biases within the industry. A lot of uh, struggle, uh, which is not been seen. So just keep doing things. That's what I do. And also there is some inequality, and there is no intersection. So this is the different experience. Don't don't uh, don't compare yourself to uh, experiences and access to the industry with someone who is Irish or from Europe. Your journey is unique, but at the same time, your story is important. So keep doing. You might don't get mentorship. You might don't get opportunity to shadow any director or be assistant, but that is not something in your hand. Your hand is that you can just keep telling your story, finding your own way.
Well said. Yeah, I think that's it. If the voices are strong enough and if that space and the space for the people to actually see them, I think that makes a big difference. And you're also creating that space as well, which is really an impressive thing to do. Great. Anyone else?
I can jump in. Yeah, I think as for the first part of your question about applying to starGAZE, um, I think that it's very easy to get caught in your own head about like what stage you're at or like what level you perceive yourself to be at with like filmmaking and art in general. But like um I would definitely just like put your hat in the ring or just like go for that application because like stargaze is like for fostering talent or it's like for developing talent. So I feel like it's a place that will meet you where you're at and like help you sort of um like I guess like all of us have talked about how we individually have been helped with our very specific like projects and like sort of like um meeting us at our levels. So definitely do just apply. Um the insecurity is okay to feel, but like I would definitely apply. As for like moving ahead in filmmaking careers and like career in the arts, I'm definitely trying to figure that out right now as well. I think it's a very murky, strange space. I'm very grateful for the other people that have been on Stargaze and just other people filmmaking and in the arts in general who I've met. So I don't know, filmmaking in general is a communal thing. It's like a community sort of art practice. And sometimes I'm like, oh no, I'm like my work and everything and my mind and is connected with other people. Like that's only when I'm feeling like especially like introverted and just like, oh my God, I wish I could just like create something right now. But it's like the biggest blessing in the world to like be like be forced and to be in like just a community sharing space all the time. That's the best thing in the world. So definitely like foster other people's talents, help other people, they'll help you. Just I think the best thing to do right now is for any stage of like filmmaking is to help other people out, you know? And like hopefully that help will come back around, but even if it doesn't, you're making art in some way. So I think that's great. Yeah.
And just well said. So look, thank you guys so much for chatting with us. I am very excited to see what everyone is going to be working on next. And yeah, good luck.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for listening. To catch up on our chat with the other 3 participants, listen back to last week's podcast. And applications for next year's programme of starGAZE will be accepted until the 14th of April, 5 p.m. So make sure to check out the National Talent Academies.ie.